Hello and welcome back to Haltech TDV. Today we have another review for you, and this is on Fractal Design's Node 304. Now we've got the white version, which is kind of glossy at the same time, and they do a black version as well. But like I said, we've got the white version here today, and what we're going to do is we're going to go around the exterior, tell you what we like, what we don't like, what the main features are, and then we'll go on to the interior of the case, and then we'll talk about things like cooling and maximum potential, and go over again things like specific limitations like CPU, cooler height, graphics card length, that kind of thing. And then we'll finish it off with our concluding thoughts on this particular case. So like I said, this is the Node 304 in white from Fractal Design. So let's go on and take a look around the exterior of the case. So the top of my head's cut off, but we're focusing more on the product. Now, going around the exterior, this is the white version, so it's actually kind of slightly different from the black version, but I'll talk about that in a second. Now, overall, the exterior has quite a minimalist design, and I personally really like minimalist designs, simply because it means that it's not limited to the environment that you can put it in. You could put this in any environment and it would fit in it perfectly fine. So you could put it in an office, you could put it as a HTPC in a living room, you could put it in your bedroom, you could put it anywhere and it will look perfectly fine. And that's because there's nothing that stands out about it. You get ones with cases with kind of jagged edges and everything, and ones that are aimed at gamers, and you can't really put that in an office or put it in the middle of a living room. It just wouldn't look right. So I do really like the exterior design of this case. Now, the white version is slightly different from the black version on the front, and that is because this is white and the black version is it has an aluminium front plate, which is the same as this one, but it's a brushed aluminium, and it's black. But you can't really do a white brushed aluminium case. You get kind of silver and stuff like that, but you don't really get white. So what they've opted for is a painted aluminium front panel on this particular one, which actually works out quite well, because as you will see, the finish on the side panels and on the front is exactly the same. So there's no transition or color transition between the front and the sides, so that works out quite well. Now, the front, like I said, it's got a curved aluminium front, white paint, which is very nice, but down here you get a Fractal Design logo, and that's pretty much all there is to the front. You do also get a activity LED down here. Now, I'm not a big fan of activity LEDs, especially on a front like this where it's pretty plain, and then if you have a little LED lighting up in the corner, it kind of ruins it for me. So I probably wouldn't plug this in, I probably wouldn't use it. It is kind of subdued compared to normal front activity LED activity LEDs. And it is, if I remember correctly, blue on this particular case. So it's not bad, but I probably wouldn't use it. Now, if I tip it up slightly and show you the top right there, you will notice that there is a grille. This is a circular mesh grille, which is a lot nicer for aesthetics, a little bit worse for airflow, but it is an area of the case which will be seen, so I do really like the fact they've gone with the circular mesh. And the fact that they've used an aluminium front panel means that it does kind of have to have a plastic backing to connect to the main chassis, just for ease of use. So you've got this plastic trim right here protruding out, which comes from the plastic backing of the aluminium panel, which is, it's not the nicest. I'd rather not have any plastic showing in the case, but they've done this quite well, so it's not awful. Now, your I/O you will find on the front panel, so it'll be a lot easier for changing things around in the case, working on the case, because it's on the front panel, but it's still on the right side. So down here you've got your power button, 2 USB 3 ports, and your headphone and microphone jacks. Now this is good because that means that they're kind of out the way, so you don't have to look at them all the time, but because they're still on the front panel, when you're working on the case, you can't just pull them out, and then you don't have to, every time you remove the side panel, have to unplug all of them and everything. It's a lot nicer, it's a lot better for working on the case, and then also aesthetics. Do note that because the USB 3 ports down here are quite close together, if you do have big USB cards, like a card reader or that kind of thing, it may block the second one, so keep that in mind. Now, while we're on the right side panel, what you can see down here is the exhaust. So this is the only thing on the right side panel. You've got the exhaust here, and this is an exhaust for your power supply, because your power supply is actually relocated in this case, so that is quite nice. It's not filtered because it's an exhaust, but we'll see more of that when we go on the inside. Now, left side panel, you do have a massive ventilation hole right here. Again, circular mesh like the right side panel and like the top, and it's very nice because this one's filtered. This is the main filtered intake, apart from in terms of the external meshes. This is the main filtered intake, apart from the bottom one, which you'll see in a minute. And this one will accommodate pretty much anything you throw at it. Blower style cards, normal fan coolers, that kind of thing. It will accommodate pretty much anything. And if I pop it out here quickly, it might go flying, it might not. It is pretty easy to remove, so it's just a couple of clips. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 clips on it. You can take that off pretty easily. It feels really, really robust, especially for just a very holy piece of mesh with a kind of a plastic support there. So it's very, very strong, and it's actually kind of heavy for what it is. Easy to pop out and very easy to put back in. I can put it in pretty easily, while also on the opposite side of the case. So if I've got all of them plugged in, yeah. So there, quite a nice feature. Personally, I think everything works quite well. I like the contrast between the black and white. I think it's all very nice. And as we get into the interior, you will notice the aesthetics, even on the interior, haven't really been put to one side. Now, looking at the back panel, I'm just going to go look at my monitor, so the camera monitor, so that I can show you it all a little bit easier. So you've got your power supply extension lead here for connecting your relocated power supply. So you've got that there. It's very nice. You've also got your I/O area here, as well as 2 expansion slots. Now the expansion slots have quite a nice they've got the expansion bay covers on, and it's got an interesting ventilation design, and I think they work quite nicely and fit quite nicely into the overall case. Above that, we have a 3-speed fan mount to connect 3 fans to, which is every single fan location on the case, basically. So it'll support every single case fan that you put into this case, as well as having 3 different speeds, low, medium and high. So that's nice. The connector, the switch, I don't think really fits in with the case, because it's a little plastic switch. Everything else is aluminium, metal, steel, everything. It just doesn't really make sense to just put a cheap switch in for me. It doesn't really fit in. It's a nice feature. It seems like the overall quality of that feature is lacking. But next to it, you have a 140/120mm fan mount, which is perfectly spaced for a water cooling radiator, like 120mm radiator, into that kind of thing. So I really like this fan location, and it does already come with a 140mm installed fan, so that is absolutely perfect, and I can't fault them on that. Now you do have 1, 2, 3, 4 thumb screws on the back to open up the interior of the case, but as you will see, all the thumb screws are extremely tight, and some of them I did actually have to use pliers and everything to open, because even I couldn't unscrew them at first from their factory tightened state, even with a screwdriver. So let's move on. After unscrewing all 4 of these fans, let's move on to the interior of the case. So here we've got the interior of the case, and as you can see, it's very open, but at the same time very compact. And if you actually look at the specifications, you will notice that it supports quite large coolers, graphics cards, power supplies and everything. And it does so by having such an interesting interior layout. Now let's go through a couple of the compatibility figures. Now it supports up to 165mm CPU coolers, which is a very big number for such a small case. That's the kind of thing that you expect in a standard mid-tower case, and it does so by having nothing above the CPU area. Now, to put this into context, there is a case that we reviewed in the past, pretty much exactly the same size, exactly the same design, in the sense that it is a mini ITX cube style case, and that only had a limitation, well, that had a limitation of 65mm for the CPU cooler. So this has an extra 100mm, an extra 10 centimeters for CPU cooler clearance, which is astounding for such a small case. Now, moving on from that, it also has a 310mm graphics card expansion slot limitation. So you can fit up to 310 31cm graphics cards in, which is also another huge figure. Note that you will have to remove one of these 3 drive cages to get access to that. Now, these 3 drive cages support a total of 6 drives in total, 2.5-inch or 3.5-inch drives, and they do have the Fractal Design logo on the top there punched in. Now these are black, contrasting very nicely with the rest of the interior of the case, and overall pretty much give the entire case from the interior outwards just a beautiful aesthetic. Now, before I move on to these, I will note that the power supply limitations are 160mm if you have a 310mm graphics card, or a graphics card within kind of that area, one that interferes with the power supply area. If you wish to not use a graphics card or an expansion card, or one that's very small and not much longer, or no longer at all, than your motherboard, then you can fit up to 190mm power supplies if you wish. Now, moving on to these hard drive cages, I think I noted that if you do want to fit long graphics cards in, you will have to remove this top one right here, which will limit you to 4 hard drives or SSDs in this case. Now, like I said, fits a total of 6 hard drives, 2.5-inch or 3.5-inch across 3 cages, so 2 in each. And I do like the fact that they are up here and that they are open and accessible, because there's not much other than kind of filters and stuff that you will be constantly changing other than storage. Storage is the one thing that you will most likely add to more often than any other component in the case. If it's an expansion card, okay, yeah, I understand that, but then that's right at the side of the case. It's easily accessible. Storage is something that you always want to be able to easily get at, and the Node 304 does this quite well, but it's not on the level of hot swap. It's not hot swappable at all. Obviously it doesn't have a backplane or anything. It's accessible, but it's kind of hard to do, because if you have the hard drives coming out, you've got the connectors that to unplug, and then obviously you've got 3 screws for each of these cages to unscrew as well. It's not as simple as it actually might look. Now, if I screw one of these back in, I'll just show you how it gets unscrewed. So you've got 1 screw up here, and then that's a normal screw, and then you've got 2 screws down here, which are thumb screws. It seems easy enough, yes, but when I actually received this product, to review. These thumb screws up here, these two, which make a total of 6 thumb screws in total for these cages, I couldn't unscrew them at all by hand, even though they're meant to be thumb screws, and I couldn't actually even unscrew them via a screwdriver. I had to get pliers to unscrew these, which means that some of these screws actually are kind of damaged. Some of the knurling on them's a bit bent, and some of the paint's been scratched off, which for me is pretty much unacceptable for what's meant to be a thumb screw, and for what's meant to be any screw at all in this case. The fact that I had to get pliers to unscrew them. Had it not been a thumb screw, who knows, I might not have even been able to unscrew it at all, which I don't think is very good. But I got them unscrewed, and it actually showed how good the paint job is on the entire case, as there wasn't a single scratch, and I had to be quite rough with these cages, and there's not a single scratch on the rest of the case, which goes to show that the rest of the case has an amazing paint job. Now, removing them really opens the case up. It shows you how much space there is on the interior. Note that this bar here can be unscrewed via 2 screws on each side, so pretty much everything can be removed down to the entire chassis, so you only have kind of a couple of bars and sides left. So it's a pretty open case. Now, this power supply area I do really like. You can remove this bar if you wish to remove it via 2 screws on each side, and then install the power supply onto this, and then put the power supply in. If you've got longer power supplies, you may have to do that. You can do that, and then it will rest on obviously the screws attached to this bar, and then 2 foam pads down here at the bottom. Moving on from that, we've already kind of covered the motherboard tray. There's not really much to talk about. You know, if I pull this out, it's a very open space. It's a mini ITX board. There's no CPU, mini ITX case. There's no CPU cooler cut out. Nothing. It's very plain. That's like most mini ITX cases. Taven larger cases like the BitFenix Prodigy, you're not going to get a CPU cooler cut out. This 140mm fan, because it's 140mm fan, that means that you will be able to look into things like 120mm all-in-one water coolers if you want to. That is a perfect location for that. Now, other than this, we've basically covered everything on the interior, but we haven't covered the front between the case and the front panel. Now, if I remove this front panel, this aluminium front panel, via 4 little clips, you will notice, as you may have already noticed, that there are 2 92mm fans already included with this case for your intake. Now, I really, really like this. Why do I like it? I'll just get these cables out, as there's quite a lot of them. I'll have to pull them out all one by one to get them all out. Why do I like it? I like it because Fractal Design have decided they're not going to opt for a big massive 120mm fan as an intake, as most companies do, because they've gone for the more optimal solution, which is 2 92mm fans blowing through the hard drive cages, not blowing onto the side of the power supply and wasting cooling potential, but actually taking advantage of the airflow that they can by having the 2 92mm fans right at the front there. So that is, for me, that is an absolutely amazing cooling design, and it's also, if you will notice right here, dust filtered. So the dust filter is right on the fans there. So that for me is just an amazing design for cooling potential, everything. So that was the interior of the case. We've pretty much gone through everything, haven't we? If we haven't, leave a comment in the description box and I will be answering all of those questions. So if you do have a question about the interior, obviously description box. So moving on to my final concluding thoughts on the Node 304. Obviously I'll discuss cooling and everything in this section as well. Now, I love the case. I think it's an exceptional case for most people. Now, as far as the design goes, I love the fact that it's got a metal front, it's got a metal chassis, and overall there's very little plastic has been used. The only plastic that you really see is this trim around the top, and then the most of the plastic in this system is actually found in the dust filters, which you don't really see that much anyway, and it's kind of hard to get around that. Now, I love the unobtrusive design, the fact that it will fit in almost any environment, in any situation, for me is a bonus on any case. And Node 304 is a perfect example of that. In terms of features and compatibility, it has 92mm fans in the front and a 140 in the back. Those are the three fan locations in this particular case, and they are all filled up already with Noctua fans, which is good value for money. It means that you don't then have to go out and buy aftermarket fans to put in the case to get the proper cooling out of it. And I love the fact that because of that, they're actually taking advantage of as much airflow as they can, rather than going with the, oh, we need a 120mm fan in the front route, which most cases have if you look at mini ITX Cube cases like this. It means that they've actually gone and thought about what is optimal for this case and for the size that they are going for. Now, other than that, you do also get compatibility for 120mm all-in-one water coolers if you want, thanks to the 140mm fan location in the back. Now, a general rule, or a general kind of a guesstimate to work off of, is that if it fits a 140mm fan, it will most likely, in 9 out of 10 cases, also fit a 120mm radiator, with obviously the end tanks and everything factored in. So it will fit a 120mm water cooler, but just radiator, but just be careful that you're not going with like a massive coolers. You might run into compatibility issues depending on your setup. Now, other than that, the overall compatibility is amazing. The 310mm graphics card limit, 165mm CPU limit, 6 hard drive bays, and a 190mm power supply limit, albeit not all together, are all numbers that you would expect out of a mid-tower case. Nothing like a mini ITX case of this size. So the fact that they can fit all of that in, and then it still be this size, is absolutely astounding. Now, that is the Node 304. Now, moving on to price. This is where things kind of, they get a bit mixed up here. It's a very expensive mini ITX case. You're actually looking at a similar price to the BitFenix Prodigy, which in some areas offers you a little bit more compatibility and potential, such as water cooling and everything, overall fans. So it's quite an expensive case, and for most people that means that it's not even an option. Most people can't even think about considering this in their budget. And while it is good value for money, it's not as good as some cases out there at the moment. There are cases almost half the price of this particular case that do most, if not exactly the same as this case. They do most of what this case does, and what you're really getting out of this is pure build quality and design, rather than extra features here and there. So it's good value for money for what it is, but there is better out there, unfortunately. If you are going to go down the route of buying a cheaper case and installing aftermarket fans, you don't need to in this case. No pun intended. As all of the fans are installed. So it's a bit of a conundrum over whether or not it's good value for you or not. For most people, it's not very good value. Well, it's okay value. But for others, it's perfect for you. So it's a very, very good case, and I'm kind of rambling on here, but at the same time, it's really depending on whether you can fit it into your budget and whether it's actually really worth it for you. So that is pretty much everything I have to say about the Node 304. I may have rambled on quite a bit. It's kind of hard to go around a mini ITX case because of the layout. Kind of confusing. It's kind of hard to figure out where to start and then where to end up. So it's kind of hard to do these kind of videos on these kind of cases. But please, if you have any questions that haven't been answered in this video review, leave them down below and I will definitely answer them. And they may already be answered in our written review, which is maybe a little bit better for some of you out there who like written content more than video content. So check out the written review, as that will have tons of pictures on this particular case. Check out the unboxing if you haven't seen that already, if you want to see that. But other than that, if you like this particular video, if you like this kind of content, please let me know if you do, and if you have any ideas, any constructive criticism, please either use the emails in the description box below or use the comment section below to let us know what you thought of this video, as we're always trying to make the videos better for you. Spectrum B, I believe it was, you have left quite a few comments on a couple of our recent videos. Thank you for that. Please, if anyone else of you has, my words are falling apart here. If there's anyone else watching who has any other opinions, please also follow suit, as we're always trying to make these videos better. Let me know what you think of this particular case. But other than that, I'm Hal Thompson. You've been watching another Haltech TV video. Please don't forget to subscribe. Head over and check out the Haltech website and check out all of our other reviews on similar cases, similar products and other PC components. And yeah, like I said, I'm Hal Thompson. You've been watching another Haltech TV video. Please don't forget to subscribe and we will see you in the next video.